$4,000 prize pool their own. That's definitely a lot of meals that you could get with $4,000. So, Limits versus Omega. The gates open and we're in. There it is. Shadowcraft versus Dragoncraft is going to kick it off now. Omega is running Nephthys Shadow.
That's right.
There we already see Kawi. He's got Mordecai in there.
And he already drew into the Death's Ledger. That's going to be huge. Sometimes, I mean, the Nephthys Shadow doesn't even draw into Death's Ledger until the later cards. It's still a formidable card later because it pulls cards based on the cost of your total mana points. So if you only have 4 mana points when you play it, it's only going to pull something like a Hell's Unleasher or an Attendant of Night.
Yes.
But if you have 8 total points, it could pull something like a Mordecai or a Kawi. That's huge. But also when you get up to that range, it could pull a Nephthys and destroy the Nephthys, not really getting any effect there.
Yeah.
So it's when you get up to those higher play points, it's definitely a risk. And playing it early is huge, and coming in to draw it this early is big.
So the interesting thing is, Nephthys Shadow is so oriented around last word effects, everything from Lich to even the ultimate Carrot to Kawi, Mordecai, everything is about the last word effect. Limits typically would not have a particularly perfect matchup against this, but we already know that he has one in hand. He has 1 drop of Odin, 1 drop of Lightning Blast, which provides the banish effect. The special thing about that is it bypasses last word effects there. So if you banish a card, it won't get destroyed. It'll get banished instead, and that last word doesn't trigger. We'll see if he can use that to its advantage. But again, like you said, Omega looks to be having a very, very strong start.
So does Limits as well. He's going to be able to evolve the Aelia here, trade into the Lich, and get rid of the Kai'Sa as well. So ramping twice effectively and clearing the board, being able to completely mitigate the Lich there that the Death's Ledger pulled up.
Yep. And they passed quite a few of the early turns real quick. Limits is already going to be up to 8 play points on his next turn. Kawi in hand is going to be really big. Now, Kawi is one of those cards we never really got to see it crash into Dragoncraft, but its effect is basically huge removal for it takes the highest damage follower on your opponent's side and destroys it randomly amongst the highest damage followers, destroys it and heals you for that amount. So even if you have something as big as something like Bahamut or something like that, you can still kind of sidestep that.
Right. And I mean, look, you're right. Limits like just went off to, he got a running start in this game. He's already going to be on 10 play points next turn. That's huge. He still has 3 orbs left to play this turn, whether it's Breath of the Salamander. Maybe if you just want to get an extra draw, you could play Dragon Oracle. But I mean, I think Limits is really sitting pretty. And Omega's only going to be on turn 6 next turn. He's not going to be able to get the Kawi, which is a really stellar counter to Bahamut, for example. So he's gonna have to be waiting 2 turns until that. And he still hasn't drawn to the Nephthys either, or the Mordecai as well.
Oh, wow. He's just going to let damage on board sustain. And that might be a game-changing choice here. The fact that Limits decided not to use his Dragoon Scyther to mitigate the little bit of damage that he could change the entire thing. And I think he might be looking to drop a huge Bahamut here and just wipe the board, be rid of it, and then when Kawi is dropped in response, banish it with Odin. Which would definitely be the ideal way to play out this scenario, but that's a lot of health that Limits just lost there. We'll see if that matters.
Absolutely. It forces
a lot of options in hand.
It forces a lot out of the Shadow player. When you can clear the board like this, there's going to be a Lich left on the field, but you can evolve trade into that easy peasy. And then, like you said, you've got the banish available for the Kawi coming out this turn probably. Unless Omega chooses to evolve the Kawi, trade into the Bahamut, and then it destroys the Bahamut, right? And then you can still go for face for 4 damage with the Lich as well. Hoping that you can stave off enough damage to go another turn and maybe play the Nephthys on the next turn as well, if he's able to draw into that.
Yep. Death's Breath in hand, so that's going to provide the triple ward that's going to allow Omega to kind of... Oh, does he know that there's banish? Please don't pass.
He's got to evolve. That's going to be absolutely huge.
Please. Because it could be a huge loss of tempo and an immediate catch-up for Limits if he can just swing with his Bahamut once.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
and
Limits
in fact,
yeah, he's already down to 8 health.
I mean, there's lethal, right? Well, you need to remove the Kawi. Okay, so Odin's going to come down here.
Yeah, Odin, banish the Kawi, evolve, and trade into the Lich, get that out the field. And then you could go for face with Bahamut. Oh my gosh, that's huge.
Yeah. And he's still got Genesis Dragon, which the big thing about Bahamut Genesis Dragon is 13 and 7 is exactly the amount of damage you need to take somebody out. Now, he couldn't do that in 1 turn because of the ward for Kawi.
Right.
But this is a really bad spot. And this was the play that Limits was going for when he went for kind of the Dragon Oracle rather than the Scyther to clear.
And the thing about the hand for Omega right now, he's got Voices of Resentment. He drew into another copy. That's huge too. He can trade into the Bahamut if he wants to. Yep. But there's still, like you said, there's still the Genesis Dragon available for limits.
Unfortunately, he can't swing at the Odin because it'll have one less damage than he needs to kill off the Kawi, which would have been actually the ideal situation to swing at Odin, kill the Odin, kill off the Kawi's effect kills off Bahamut. But alas, not able to be completed, and so now Omega with that huge Kawi play. We've talked about it, man.
13 points of healing, that's huge.
Kawi is really good.
Meanwhile, giving Limits a free hand here. He could play Forte, Zeus, Genesis Dragon if he wanted to.
Zeus
or
might be the play. It's safety as well as offense. There's no reason to go all out aggressive right now. I feel like that would be kind of the direction that you would lean. 16 or rather 11 damage is nothing to laugh at. If you evolve, you got 13 again.
Yeah, and that would put Omega right down into the dangerous range.
Yep.
Omega still has Voices of Resentment, so if he chooses to Forte, that's one card that can't be attacked by the ghosts with Bane if you use the enhanced Voices of Resentment. So that could be huge as well. But there's also the zombie party getting rid of at least one of those followers.
Interesting.
Oh, that's great, getting the Draconic Fervor. He's not even going to play it this turn, though. Interesting. He had 5 orbs remaining.
So he has enough damage on board, plus the Storm, to still close it out.
Right.
It might all be the same to him.
Yeah, we might... It's going to be the Death's Breath.
Warding up.
Yeah, warding up. At least being able to mitigate some of the damage. That Limits is going to be bringing out next turn.
And that 3 defense makes it so difficult for Salamander to push through. So Limits is going to need to really just kind of bunker down and actually trade through all these 3 ward cards. Really awkward situation, actually.
Yeah, it is very awkward. Limits was able to get the 4-cost Draconic Fervor last turn. And he drew another Dragon Emissary, so he could get a draw for another strong card, maybe a Bahamut, being able to use that next turn. Which it's a shame that he used his Bahamut a few turns ago, because he's not able to play it this turn to completely get rid of all of those zombies. But there's the Ouroboros.
Wow. They immediately drop the Ouroboros. And maybe even evolve it to take down another zombie there. Now, trading in your Ayla is not...
You might as well just leave it up.
Yeah, because you don't get the ramp anymore.
Right.
It's still a valuable body. That 2 extra damage can make a big difference here. So last Evolve Orb gets spent by Limits onto the Ouroboros. Nephthys finally is drawn out here. And maybe he'll opt to even suicide the zombie before using Nephthys. There it is. Let's see. Will there be a Kawi? He's already played 2. I don't think he has 3, does he?
There's the Kawi and the Mordecai.
God.
Absolutely stellar. Being healed up to 20 health twice in this game. And he still has an Evolve Orb to use in the next turn. Or, I mean, he's probably not going to want to Evolve trade into Aelia this turn, but he still has that available to him. That's absolutely huge.
Oh, man. And that's a big swing in tempo. And I have to wonder if Limits, I mean, he still would have gotten a card removed that Kawi would have continued healing. Kawi is so good in this scenario against Dragon because there's so much large damage on the table.
Yep.
You heal. I mean, the amount of healing Omega has done just in those 2 Kawi drops has been insane. What, 10 healing and 13 healing?
13 healing on the first one, yeah.
23 health in total. That's another player's worth.
There's a Forte down for 5 points of damage right there to face. There's a Mordecai and a, oh my gosh, and the Grimnir, yeah.
Man. And I think he'll be 1 point away. Nope, there it is, lethal. There it is, that Grimnir draw. I mean, he had it kind of on deck, ready to go.
Yeah.
And Nephthys is able to take a win. The big issue here is, okay, so Nephthys performed incredibly admirably, and Kawi's basically exactly when you needed it. But now that deck is kind of off the table.
Right.
Now you have to go up against that same Dragoncraft list, and possibly even Shadowcraft as the alternate, right? And you have to win with your alternate choice here, which might be a lot more difficult for Omega.
Right, so we'll see what Limits decides to do, whether he wants to stay on his Dragon deck or go over to his Shadow deck. I feel like mid-range Shadow could be a really strong choice, knowing that you've already played your Dragon deck, you've shown the cards that you have in that deck. You've seen what the Odin can do. So maybe switching over to mid-range Shadow could be a great choice.
Yeah, and certainly kind of the banish options, Lightning Blast and Odin, are much more suited to Dragoncraft mirrors and much more applicable to Nephthys than it is mid-range Shadow. Oftentimes in mid-range Shadow, by the time you're getting to that point in the game where you can play a Lightning Blast, where you can play an Odin, Lightning Blast a little less so, but it doesn't give you any board control. That's when mid-range Shadow is really coming in big and kind of blowing out its largest guns, right? So, by the time you get to Odin, it's like you're probably already losing or dead.
Right.
And when Lightning Blast comes around, okay, you banish one of its maybe 2/2 or 1/1 followers, and then Ector comes down and you still die, right?
Right, especially when you save those Evolve Orbs for Kawi instead of using them on turn 4 and turn 5. If you can use them with the Kawi, I mean, that's absolutely stellar. And it's going to be Omega's Blood deck that's coming out.
This one's for my family.
Blood against Dragon. We've seen this race time and time again. I think whoever's going first is really important right now. Bloodcraft really wants to play fast-paced and kind of get ahead of the ramp.
Dance of Death is going to be absolutely crucial in this Dragon matchup, but this early on, it's certainly not the card you want to see in your hand right away. You want to have the Blood Wolves, you want to have the Belphegors as well, if you can draw into that.
One more chance here for Omega to get something started. And it's going to be Razor Claw, which is decent, but it is a little more valuable than a follower just because it's that direct damage that you might have needed to close out the match. Draw 2 cards, so he's actually getting some options here. I believe he would have liked that Eurus to drop that a turn earlier. Dragon Emissary.
And Limits, seeing how Omega really hasn't played a follower this whole game. Devil of Vengeance coming out now. He doesn't have the Soul Dealer or the Belphegor, but he could be tempting Limits to evolve and trade into the Soul Dealer this turn. I think it's exactly what he has to do, knowing that there could be a Belphegor. He made the Blood Pact, he's had the card draw. So playing that card is a really great bait, almost.
Forward, we'll be able to do 3 and take it out. There's the amulet.
Blood-fed flower bed. Say that 3 times fast.
Blood-fed flower bed. Blood-fed flower bed.
Exactly.
Blood-fed flower bed.
It's such a great name for a card. I love it.
Blood-fed flower bed. Blood-fed flower. Oh my god. That's too difficult. 9 play points here. The double symbol ramp. And things are getting real out of hand. You really needed to go early and go fast.
Yeah, but he wasn't able to draw into the options that he needed. He does have the Urius and the Blood Wolf, so he's going to be able to get some damage on this turn, but it's not going to be much considering that we could see a Sahak Wheel Eastrefill completely clear the board this coming turn.
Yep. Eastrefill only has to swing against the weakest follower on the board as well, so...
Yeah, he could just completely clear the board with the Eastrefill if he wanted to save the Evolve Orb, summon it this turn, but it's going to be the Grimnir.
There it is, the Grimnir, another staple of the expansion. Kind of almost a must-include in every single deck.
And it's going to be Omega bringing... I mean, that Grimnir brought him down to 10 health. He's on Vengeance right now. He's got double Dark General, so for next turn, that's, I mean, at least 8 points of damage, plus an Evolve 10 points of Storm. And he's going to spend one of them this turn. Knowing that you've got the Hungering Horde as well to get a little bit more of damage.
So he's aggressive, and with every turn that passes, especially with the Evolution Orb, Limits has a lot of options to control the board. He just needs to make sure Eastrefill healing will kind of justify that.
And he's got the Genesis Dragon evolved right here.
Yep. Yep, and the Evolve will bring him up to 9. And that's kind of the big issue with Vengeance Blood if you don't draw into your options early, right? I mean, having the Dragoncraft player be up at 10 play points and still have that Evolve Orb left, you just have so much strength behind all your 10 drops and 9 drops and whatever it was, right?
It's kind of the risk you play with that deck. It's incredibly strong, but it's reliant upon having that 4 drop. You need that one of those 3 cards, maybe one of those 6 cards if you have 3 Belphegors and 3 Soul Dealers. You need to have those cards in your hand by turn 4. And that's a risk. That's a big risk you take when you play that deck.
I think especially for Limits in that situation, going first and being able to ramp so far ahead of your opponent. He was at 10 real quick, and the instant he got to 10, he was just able to kind of Grimner and then Genesis Dragon, and that was enough, right? That was all you needed at that point. Double Sybil is huge. That ramp that you get and the healing that you get, and just the fact that Limits had to continue spending resources, not swinging face, but kind of clearing the board, that's the kind of tempo stop that will ruin your day.
Hey, Limits has a blood deck. I thought he had a shadow deck.
It's a pretty good early draw.
Yeah, not bad.
Wow. Okay.
And we talked about how fast some games can be, sword on sword, shadow on shadow. This could possibly be one of the fastest games that we've ever seen, when both a blood on blood matchup is so quick. Omega was able to get. He's going to have the blood fed flower bed right on turn 1.
Nice.
He wants to play that, but he doesn't play it. But it's going to be a lot of damage that both players are doing to themselves and doing to their opponent as well.
Yeah, and no matter which way you look at it, right, up until turn 4, getting them to 10 health is also kind of a moot point. You know what I mean? Because kind of you're doing damage to them, but maybe that's doing them a favor. Right.
It's a massive bluffing game is what it is, because both players are going to want to show that they've got the perfect hand and scare their opponent into possibly making a misplay. There's the Belphegor for Limits. That's absolutely huge.
I wonder if he's going to do anything about the Eurus. Not really a good option to go against it. Wow. Didn't even choose to swing. That,
Let's have some fun.
Choosing, I mean, and maybe anticipating the Succubus coming out next turn. If he had attacked, he would have been, the Succubus would have done 2 damage to him. I mean, but then again, you've already got the Belphegor. And you've got turn 4 first, so you don't have an Evolve Orb this turn. So playing Belphegor, you get the 2 draw, but you don't have really any other massive effects this turn. But again, Omega doesn't have the 4 drop. That's going to be huge. It's going to be massively telling for Limits when Omega doesn't drop the Belphegor in turn 4, knowing that, okay, none of his cards are the Belphegor.
Blood Pack. Now, Limits opted not to play the Belphegor quite yet. That might be entirely attributed to the fact that he just doesn't quite feel the need to right now. Doesn't have the Evolve Orb. He's not in danger of being swinged at.
Right, doing damage to your face as much as you can until you get to 11 health right here. And he's got 7 health of Ward on the field. And next turn, Belphegor possibly coming out is going to be doing just 1 damage as opposed to 8 or 7 damage.
Yeah. Double Ward on the board is actually really hard to push past.
Yeah, especially even with an Evolved Grimnir taking out one of the wards and the Succubus still only has 2 damage. I mean, you're not really going to be able to clear off all the wards this turn. Yeah, and we're still only at 4 play points, so Dance of Death, I mean, not even going to be playable until next turn.
And I think Omega is kind of looking over his options and figuring that they're actually not that great.
Yeah, the choice that Limits has made in the past few turns to not attack, I mean, it's kept Omega at 18 health.
He's gonna use
So he's not anywhere close to being in Vengeance.
I think that's so interesting. He spent the Evolve point. I think he's just trying to make it so it's as difficult as possible for Limits to remove from the board, but Dance of Death will be an easy answer there.
Right.
And the Spiderweb Imp lives on. Evolve will give it even more health. Be able to trade. And again, it's just so like you're just barely missing. What is it going to be, a Grimnir Evolve?
He's got the Blood Pack to do damage to himself, getting closer to Vengeance, and also the draw as well. I mean, that's going to be huge, just trying to get more and more options. There's the Devil of Vengeance. Not going to be able to attack for possibly a few more turns. But he was able to draw a Spiderweb Imp of his own as well.
There's Grimnir. He's just going to let it sit. No, he chooses to evolve it, so it's going to be left with 2 health.
My power is
And
uncontrollable.
that's going to necessitate some kind of a response here from Limits. He's got a second Belphegor. Might be time to start playing him.
Yep, he's only going to take 1 bit of damage and getting a 4/4 drop. 2 draw as well.
Oh,
That's
a
absolutely
Hungry Horde.
huge.
That's kind of a big card to have in hand, especially when you're kind of in a position now where you're in Vengeance and you really want to be swinging towards the face of your opponent.
Right.
Having that Hungering Horde remove any kind of card like a ward or anything like that is going to be key.
Omega does have he still has the Devil of Vengeance, but he's not even in Vengeance to play the card to evolve and trade into the Belphegor. It's going to have to be the Razor Claw to get rid of the Belphegor on the side of Limits.
Double Spiderweb Ape here, and now in Vengeance and very well protected.
Both players right at 10 health. This is where the game gets interesting. This is where Bloodcraft shines.
Vengeance is active.
But Limits doesn't even have any Vengeance cards. He doesn't have the Dark General. He doesn't have the Dark Air Jammer or anything to take advantage of the fact that this is the second turn that he's been in Vengeance. And the first turn for Omega, and Omega's got the Devil of Vengeance. He's got the card that can take advantage of that. Evolve for 6 attack and 6 defense for only a 3 cost. But, I mean, with the way that his curve is working out in his hand, it's either going to have to be just the Devil or the Dance of Death next turn as well, because he's only going to be on 7 play orbs. And he's got 2 blood-fed flower beds in his hand. You know, real difficult. I mean, if you're able to get into the position where you have a little bit more health than your opponent, the flower bed can close out the game. It could be absolutely huge.
Groomer's going to be played, and that's going to stop both the Spiderweb Imps for now, even though Omega is sitting on a Dance of Death. So we'll see. I think that... Oh, and another Succubus. It'll be interesting because the health points matter so little, and it's all about kind of who gets to swing first, really, right? We're kind of in a lockdown where there's wards on both sides, and there's a removal option here for Omega, but if he chooses to spend that now, he doesn't actually have good units to kind of swing past. He might want to wait just a bit.
The world earned my wrath.
Let's have some fun.
And that's 2 cards out of the hand of Omega with only 3 cards remaining. 2 of them amulets, 1 of them a spell. Omega is almost entirely reliant upon his next draw next turn. He does have the Dance of Death. That's some pretty solid removal, but I mean, the Flower Bed is kind of a dead card right now unless you're able to have the cards that make it useful, that can bring your opponent down to that critical moment where the Flower Bed might be useful. He does have a sizable board.
There it is. The amulet comes down.
Ticking away at that damage over the next 4 turns. There's another Imp, so he's got the ward. Mitigating an attack from at least either the Succubus or the Devil of Vengeance, and Limits doesn't even have an Evolve Orb this turn to use. He's already on turn 8. He might want to just save the Grimnir for turn 10 in 2 turns, but I feel like maybe that would be too late. You might need a ward this turn.
Now the combination of... Yeah, removal is actually not super comfortable as well for Limits, and he doesn't have Evolve Orbs.
Right, he's got the Hungering Horde, but against a Spiderweb Imp, it's going to be leaving them both alive with 1 defense. Or you could use it on the evolved Succubus there. It's got 3 defense right away.
Being able to Hungering Horde and then use Angel of Word will be able to get rid of 1 of the wards, but then that's 2 cards to mitigate 1 damage here.
Right, and then you still leave the 8 attack left on your opponent's side of the field.
The fact that the Succubus is there as well makes it so that if you heal up beyond a certain point, Omega can still bring it back with the Succubus's ability.
Right, and he was able to draw into Diabolic Drain. That's huge. That could get rid of the Devil of Vengeance, heal for 2. That's big, and you can still Hungering Horde, get rid of the heavy hitters on the side of Omega. Just leaving those 1 attack
And
wards.
I think that's a play.
This is my home. You are my food.
He's going to offer the Imp instead.
So now both players are at 7 defense. There's the Dance of Death, bringing Omega right into lethal range.
There it is. Omega is able to do it, and I feel like that's such a weird matchup.
Yeah.